Hey guys, how are you? Well, today isn't as great as it was yesterday. Yesterday I was at the Dan Infalt scouting workshop. It was 4 degrees when we started off. I think it ended at about 22. Some of us were overdressed a little bit. But hey, we had a great time. Sun out, a lot of information gathered. I don't know how many miles we put on, but I will tell you I had a 64 gigabyte card in my GoPro. And I used 77% of that taking videos. A lot of great info, like I said, and I want to thank Dan and everybody else who put this on. What I'm going to do is break it up into series. Each time we stopped, Dan would explain the situation and how he scouted it, and then he would take answers from us. And then he gave us answers for every question that was asked. So thank you very much, Dan. Legendary provided some shirts for us too. Those were kind of nice. And a lot of great information. Like I said, if you haven't done one, you've got to do one. We had a lot of guys driving from everywhere. Some guys from Minneapolis, some from Indiana, one guy from New York. Just a great time, you guys. You got to do one if you can. I don't know if he has any more left. I know he's got one going on today in this weather, but we had a great time. So I'm going to break it up into series. Every time we stopped, I'm going to try and do a video with that. Out of all the videos I did, I think one didn't have sound. So not going to post that one for you. But other than that, we had a great time. Sign up for a workshop. If he doesn't have any more this year, next year you got to do one. It was a lot of fun. See you guys later. Hope you enjoy them. Bye-bye.
Good tip. Oh man. Maybe I should get that thing ready to roll. The battery don't freeze.
Anybody want a water you take with?
Sweet. I got my laptop in my car. Hopefully that thing don't explode at some point.
Ooh, ours too. Nice. How are we going to cool them down today? Check in?
Marsh, and there's a parking lot over there, and that parking lot is in pretty rough condition. Way worse than this. So we're going to try and group up into the four-wheel drive trucks. I do got straps if somebody gets stuck or something, but we're going to go in from over there. It's a pretty big area. It's got a narrow strip access to the big marsh that we're going to walk up. And what we're going to look at is it's a pretty big area. And I think a lot of guys would just go in there and kind of randomly scout all over. And I'm going to show you how I'd rapidly scout that and go through it. We're going to look at some spots where I've actually hunted and killed some pretty decent bucks over there, and some of the guys I hunt with have too. And the thing that really makes this workshop great is the questions and stuff. You're going to look at some of my setups and stuff that I've done and what I would do. And I'm really going to encourage questions, because that's what brings out the best. If you're thinking something, don't be shy, even if you think it's a little, questionable question where, oh, I might upset Dan. I'm not worried about it, you know. If you have that question, somebody else probably does too. So, feel free to talk about anything you want. We'll stop frequently, look at things and question things, and should be a good time. Did everybody get to use the bathroom and stuff? So let's try and group up into trucks. If anybody's got a four-wheel drive or something and wants to pack some people in. Otherwise, if you're going in something lighter, might want to go last after we bust the snow down.
It's a good chance I was pointing at the
I'll
ground.
probably pull up over here and everybody can line up behind me, and I'll have one of the guys go
You guys
last
have a
and he can call me and tell me when everybody's rolling. If you look beside us, you can see some old signs hanging on the trees. That's the land border, so that's private. And it's going to come up to the trail that we're walking on to get back here and meet with it and follow it. There's really not much on this side, so this gets overlooked a lot. This is one of those spots alongside the parking lot where I've done real well. I've shot some real slammers right out of this willow tree right here. I don't even use the stand, I stand in the crotch in it. And you can actually see one set of deer tracks right underneath it, right where I usually shoot them. They come out of that dogwood, red brush out here. Same stuff you look for like on a map. You look at a cattail marsh, you see those little islands of brush. I probably hunt here maybe once a year, every other year. You know, in the past 3 years, I think I've hunted here twice. This last season I hunted here, and there's actually some video footage on our YouTube page of a small buck getting out of that dogwood there and walking underneath me and looking up. Some of you probably saw that video. I don't always hunt that tree. Sometimes I hunt in that pine tree right there, depending on the sign coming out. And the tree behind it's an apple tree. Sometimes they're hitting that apple tree. But if you look around, you'll see a lot of old rubs on those pine trees that are real big. And behind me here, you'll see a lot of rubs back here where they stage up here when they come out before they cross the road. So they're only on public land for maybe 100 yards or so. And while sitting in that tree, I'm watching the guys walk up and down that road. That tree line is the road that goes back to the access. And I never run into anybody here, and this is where I've shot some of the biggest bucks in this whole marsh. Right next to the road, right next to the parking lot. It just goes to show you that you got to look for the stuff where nobody looks.
What's across over here?
A bunch of farm fields, private land. And there is, where we cross the river down there, there's a ranch there that charges $10,000 a person to hunt it. And they trophy manage, and those deer float over here a lot. Those of you that have followed me for a while probably remember the Rome Legend buck. That was shot back here, and that was living on that ranch, but would come over here during the rut and had a certain girlfriend over here every year. It would be in the same spot, and that's what I targeted. That's how I targeted that buck. But so some of those bucks float back and forth.
So you hunt the spot on any wind except for the wind blowing out into this marsh?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They'll bed in there around those islands. They'll change their bedding based on the wind, but they're still going to come out the same. They'll come out here no matter what the wind is, so I just want the wind in my face. Some variation of that, you know, so it's not blowing at them.
So looking online, it looked like the ag fields are outside of this. A lot of those.
Yeah, there's ag fields over here. All of them on this end. There's ag fields on the back. There's ag fields over there. It is kind of surprising, like when you shine the marsh, you don't always see those big bucks in those fields. Some, you know, like in July or August, I'll shine around these fields all night long. It's legal here. And you might get a glimpse of one of those giants once or twice in those 2 months. A lot of times they're in here eating dogwood and stuff. People think they're always in those crops. Not always.
Is this more like an early spot, like an early season spot?
I have done better here early season, but probably because I take that back. I used to do well all season, but now I do better early season. But the farmer here does a big drive every gun season now, and they line up about 100 people and push this and line up on the road here. And ever since that, now I only do well early season.
So there's not much bull pressure on the private? Not many guys hunting it?
There's a few. Not much.
When do you notice the deer migrating out of the marsh?
As soon as you start getting ice in the water. There's some that'll stay out there all year, but the majority come out and go more towards the crops and the drier land. And last week when we did the scouting, we noticed a lot of bedding that would at first glance appear random. I don't know if we'll see that this week or not, this new snow. But when you looked at that bedding that was up on higher ground, it was all near the points, the bedding points. I mean, it was all like the bucks be bedding up here instead of down there when there's ice, you know what I'm saying? So a little further out. And we'll probably see the same thing this time. It's just that there's not a lot of deer in here at this time of the year. Most of them are across the street.
Is there any correlation with wind direction on the better bucks leaving this marsh and coming out over here? Like wind in their face or coming out in crosswinds?
I see them come out on any wind, And I'm usually hunting close enough that I'll kill them regardless. What I do see is they move a little further when they get the wind in their favor.
Right.
So you might see an earlier movement.
More daylight.
Like a lot of times I'll be sitting here and I'll have a buck get up and I'm watching him in there for a half an hour and then I shoot him at closing time.
Yeah. Right.
You know, when you got the wind in their favor and you got a just off wind, sometimes it's a lot earlier.
Right.
When you're shining and you see the deer in the fields around here, how do you figure they're coming from this marsh or another area around here?
Well, generally I look at the time frame when I'm seeing them and I try to develop a pattern. You know, I'm watching them, seeing where they're coming out, what time they're coming out. If I'm seeing them in one field at one time and another field at a different time, you know, and trying to put a pattern together of where they're coming from. And then I correlate that back to what I know in the marsh. And literally around here, most of the biggest bucks will be in the marsh. There's probably more pressure on the private land than there is in the marsh. Not to say the marsh doesn't get pressure, it's just that there's bigger pockets of stuff where nobody goes in the marsh than there is in the private. Just about everything private around here gets hunted.
It's pretty much an evening stand then? You want to come in the morning necessarily? Or?
Yeah, I just hunt in the evening. It probably wouldn't be bad in the morning because they'd probably get to here before they start circling downwind, but I've never hunted it in the morning.
Do you look for rubs or anything like before you decide to hunt it?
That's a good question. Generally, I do like that. Like if I come in here, I'm looking for that big sign, but that's not 100%. Sometimes if a big buck holes up in an area like this and takes it over and nothing else will come in here, he doesn't feel no reason to mark his territory. And sometimes you can have a big buck there and everything goes dead. But if you have a lot of little rubs and no big rubs, generally there's no big buck around. But if it's completely dry, there might be a reason that somebody's holding it up and nobody else is coming over here because there's not a lot of big bucks, you know, in any given area in public land. So when I go through a public property, I'll come in and do a couple hunts in here, look at the rubs and stuff. And if I don't see big buck sign, I'm on to the next property. Because there's generally only one buck in an area like this whole area that we're going to look at today that I want to hunt, personally, one or two. So if I'm not seeing the sign, I'm moving constantly. Doesn't mean you're going to see the sign right here. Like I said, that buck might not be leaving the sign right here, but I might be seeing big rubs, you know, back in here 400 or 500 yards. And then I'm going to hop around and hunt these bedding areas a little more. I'm going to stay in the area. If there's sign, there's a big buck in the area. But I'm not going to waste my time if there's no big rubs or big tracks in the area.
You look for big rubs, big tracks, anything else to show you that there's a...
That's the main characters. That what I really look at is the rub height. And I think we'll see some of that today. When you start seeing those rubs up about this high, it's almost always a mature buck. When the center of the rub is about that high. When they're down low like this, you know, the 3-year-olds are usually in this area and the 2-year-olds are not usually in this area. And that might sound a little out there, but I've been really studying that for years and I believe it's true. Every time you find a rub like this, the buck that comes along is a huge old buck, you know.
So you figured
The
those
height.
back there a year and a half, 2.5 years old?
And it has little to do with the diameter. I mean, I've seen some pretty small bucks rub some pretty big trees and rub them low. The diameter and the shredding gets everybody worked up, but it could be a little buck with little tines ripping up the bark, you know. There's other signs you'll see too, like higher up marks, which I'm not seeing a lot of here. This one has some up in here. Has some marks.
Could also be a guy with his beef stick, right?
You could. I've personally seen that.